Eva Pilgrim, thanks for streaming with us. We could see a Grammy award-winning artist take the stand as soon as tomorrow in the sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy trial against hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs. We've learned prosecutors plan to call rapper Kid Cudi as soon as tomorrow. He briefly dated Cassie Ventura. That would be after the wide range of witnesses we saw today. Cassie Ventura's mom, Regina, testifying about her daughter's bruised body and the pictures she took after Diddy allegedly beat Cassie, saying she wanted to memorialize it. Ventura's mother also telling the jury she took out a loan to pay Combs a $20,000 that he demanded to recoup money that he had spent on her, saying she was scared for her daughter's safety. That money ultimately returned to her by Combs. Also taking the stand, the male escort known as the Punisher, a nickname he said he earned playing basketball. He went into graphic detail about an alleged sexual encounter with Ventura that included applying baby oil and a nude man in the room, a man he later knew to be Combs, telling the jury, "I was specifically told to not acknowledge him, try not to look at him." The jury also hearing about Combs' love for Heinz 57 ketchup from a former personal assistant, as prosecutors try to use his testimony to establish Diddy's leadership of an alleged criminal enterprise. Coming up, what he said about an alleged incident involving Combs and rival Suge Knight at a diner that made him feel like his life was in danger. Plus, Don Richard's attorney Lisa Bloom joins us after her client's big day in court. But first, let's start in Lower Manhattan, outside the federal courthouse. ABC News chief investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky back there again today. Aaron, you were once again there in court. Cassie Ventura's mother, Regina, took the stand. What did she say?
Regina Ventura said she was physically sick by an email that her daughter had sent her just before Christmas in 2011. Eva, it indicated that Sean Combs was blackmailing her. Regina Ventura said this email, and the jury saw it, read that he was going to release 2 explicit tapes because Combs had found out she was dating Kid Cudi, and also threatened to harm both Cassie Ventura and Kid Cudi. And she said she became scared for her daughter's safety and agreed to send Combs $20,000 that he had apparently demanded to recoup some of the money that he had spent on Cassie. She said she took out a home equity loan to come up with the money and wired it according to instructions sent by Combs's bookkeeper. Now, Regina Ventura said the money ultimately came back, but this testimony backed up Cassie's assertion that she had, in effect, been blackmailed, and federal prosecutors said that blackmail was meant to coerce her into sexual acts.
Sean Combs' former assistant David James also testified today. How did he describe what it was like working for Diddy?
David James's testimony was like some disjointed Pulp Fiction Quentin Tarantino film, Eva, because there was the time where he bought an 8-ball of cocaine off a yacht in Miami, and there he was driving Sean Combs to confront his rival record producer Suge Knight at Mel's Diner in Los Angeles. And the other time when he walked into a freak-off and saw Cassie Ventura lying motionless on her back, when, as before, he said he had only saw her sleeping on her side when he used to walk in and wake up Cassie and Sean Combs to start their day. He talked about how exacting it could be to work for Sean Combs, how exhausting the 7-day work weeks were routine. And he talked about all the things he was meant to keep for Sean Combs. He remembered traveling in London, and Combs didn't like the taste of ketchup in the UK, so he had to have Heinz 57. He talked about stocking baby oil and Astroglide lubricant in hotel rooms for Sean Combs.
I also have to ask you, Aaron, about the Punisher. He was one of the people who took the stand today. He actually wrote a book that details some of his experiences with Diddy and Cassie. What did he tell the jury?
The book is called In Search of Frozen Meat, and it apparently is now on Amazon, the #1 best-selling book about male impotence. And he talked about erectile dysfunction and his belief that receiving a penile implant is the solution. This testimony, though, really focused on the 8 to 12 times that he said he was called by Cassie Ventura, who for most of the time he knew as a woman named Janet, where he was called to create a sexual scene, as he described it. And eventually, what started with rubbing baby oil on one another became more sexual. He talked about one time where he and Cassie Ventura had performed oral sex. Sean Combs threw a box of condoms on the couch and said, "Go ahead," and indicated that he wanted Hayes, Sheree Hayes, his real name, to have intercourse with Cassie Ventura.
The last witness of the day, curious to ask you about this, was a federal agent. What did he show the jury?
He showed the jury items that he said were seized from Sean Combs' Miami Beach home, including 2 AR-15 style rifles that were pulled off a shelving unit in the main bedroom, and they were intermingled with baby oil, with Astroglide lubricant, with lingerie, and with 7-inch platform heels, all on the same shelves. The upper receiver for the weapon was found wrapped in a towel. The lower receiver was found in a box with ammunition.
Aaron Katersky for us again at the courthouse. Aaron, thank you so much. Let's bring in ABC News legal contributor, criminal defense attorney, and former prosecutor Bernarda Villalona, who was in the courtroom today. Wow, there's a lot to unpack here. Any standout moments to you?
Definitely a roller coaster of a day today in terms of emotion, in terms of testimony, in terms of, we heard from the escort, I guess, male performer. We heard from the mom. We heard from the agent. But let's start with the most important part. We heard from Cassie Ventura's mother. Cassie Ventura's mother, can I tell you how soft-spoken she is, just like her daughter. But she was testifying with so much pain that you can see and hear in her voice. When she said, "I was scared for my daughter's safety," literally the jurors were taking notes and were like literally hanging at her every word because she came off so credible and so emotional. You can tell the genuine fear that she had for her daughter and for what Sean Combs was doing to her. But most importantly, when they pointed to this email that Cassie has sent to her mother, and from the email about sexually explicit videos possibly being released. And then shortly thereafter, there was a demand from Sean Combs for $20,000. And if you don't get the $20,000, then we're going to release these videos. But add on to that is the injuries that for the first time she saw her daughter, and her daughter actually telling her that it was the hands of Sean Combs. So why is this important? Because it goes to extortion. It goes to the coercion. Next up, having to deal with Suge Knight and Sean Combs. Eva, we're talking about riding dirty.
His assistant
brought this up, that there was a point in time that he had went to a diner. In that diner, they saw Suge Knight. After that, they went straight back to the home. And when they went back to the home, that Sean Combs and Cassie were outside, and Sean Combs gets in the car. When he turns around in the car, he sees Sean Combs with 3 firearms in his lap, and that he was saying to, not going to say the words, but to drive down to the diner, in essence, to go ahead and shoot Suge Knight. That right there was a moment where, for the first time, we saw actual testimony, and her testimony of what Sean Combs is capable of allegedly going out there to try to execute Suge Knight. However, I have to note that the defense did an excellent job in the sense of trying to bring doubt to his testimony, to his credibility. Are you sure? Are you sure this is what happened? So the defense may have something up their sleeve in the sense to discredit that testimony, having to deal with the alleged shooting that was about to transpire with Suge Knight.
We have to talk more, too, about this exotic dancer, performer, the Punisher. He testified about being hired several times by Sean Combs and Cassie Ventura to create, quote, a sexy scene, I think is how it was described. Why does he matter as a witness?
So in terms of why he matters as a witness, there's strength in numbers. So remember that the prosecution is going to call other escorts to come in and testify about these freak-offs. So that way the case is not just about Cassie testifying as to these freak-offs. Now we have 2 male escorts that have testified about these freak-offs and how it transpired and how Cassie behaved and what Sean Combs were saying and what transpired doing this freak-offs. But more importantly, that he was getting paid. So the prostitution part of engaging in prostitution. But the defense did an excellent job in cross-examining this witness, because this witness said that, look, it was consensual, that Cassie enjoyed it, that nothing in his experience led him to believe that she did not want to engage into these sexual acts. Again, going to the consent portion and the willingness portion of wanting to engage in these acts. And if it's consensual, then you don't have sex trafficking.
Okay, the last witness that took the stand today was a special agent, testified about firearms that they found at Combs's Miami residence after his arrest. Is there any significance to that testimony?
Well, the significance to that testimony is that agent gave us an insight as to what was recovered during that search warrant. So they left off as to the search warrant that was executed at the Florida home. So aside from the baby oil, the stilettos, and these firearms that were recovered, the jury got to see these AR-15s. So 2 AR-15s were actually recovered and actually was shown to the jury, taken out of the evidence bag. So again, going to show that why does Sean Diddy Combs have in his possession an AR-15? But remember, there's no counts having to deal with possession of a firearm in his indictment.
All right. Bernardo Villalona, always so good to have you. And prosecutors are hoping that with every witness, they're closer to proving the charges at hand, all of which Combs has denied. Helping to build the government's case, Dawn Richard, former member of Diddy's girl group, Danity Kane. She also went on to be a part of Dirty Diddy Money. With me now is Richard's attorney, Lisa Bloom. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. I know you were with Dawn yesterday. What did she say to you after she left, after it was all done?
She was glad she was done. You know, it's a really nerve-wracking experience to walk into federal court, to see 2 rows of defense attorneys, a row of prosecutors, all these reporters in the gallery, right? And have to raise your right hand and do your best to tell the truth, not only to the prosecutor's questions, but on a pretty challenging cross-examination. I think she did a magnificent job, and she was glad it was done and she got to go home.
I'm curious, did she want to testify? Did she want to tell her story?
I don't think she wanted to testify. She was willing to testify, and there's a difference. I don't think anybody, listen, I've been a trial lawyer for a long time representing victims of discrimination, harassment, and abuse. And I always have to beg people to testify. Nobody wants to, right? I say it's like putting on a play that none of the actors want to be in. But and most people run as far as they can from the courthouse. They do not want to be there. There are a few brave people like Dawn Richard who say, although there's nothing in this for me, I will do it because it's the right thing to do. And that's what she did.
Yesterday on cross, the defense tried to say Dawn couldn't keep her story straight. What do you say to that?
Well, that's silly. So, of course, anytime somebody tells a story over and over again for hours and hours, as she was required to do when the U.S. attorneys investigated this matter, there's going to be minor differences. But overall, the essence of her story was very strong, that she saw Mr. Combs engage in acts of violence against Cassie Ventura, that he threatened them. And that's been backed up by witness after witness after witness. And what Dawn also testified about were people that worked for Mr. Combs who essentially saw what was going on, the violence against Cassie, and turned a blind eye to it. And that's important because remember, this is not a case about domestic violence or assault. It's about racketeering, which is essentially a legal word for a conspiracy of a group of people to commit significant crimes. And so they allege Mr. Combs didn't do this on his own. Other people knew about it, like the CEO of Bad Boy, like assistants. That's what her testimony was about.
We know the judge limited some of what she could say there in court. Was there anything that she wanted to say that she didn't get to?
I'm sure that there was, and you're right. And it's so frustrating when you're a witness. We have our civil case that we filed before the government's criminal case. And in her civil case, she will be able to tell her own story about all of the significant issues that she has with Mr. Combs in terms of her employment with him, being underpaid, being treated badly, et cetera. So she'll have a chance there to tell her story.
Lisa Bloom, thank you so much. And we should point out that Richard is suing Combs in civil court for claims ranging from sexual assault to copyright infringement. Combs' lawyers have denied all the allegations and have filed a motion to dismiss. Thanks again. Still ahead, Cassie Ventura's mom testified. The defense choosing not to cross-examine her, how that could play in the trial. Also ahead, Obama and Diddy? Why that's one of the top searches online when it comes to the trial of Sean Combs. Stay with us. Welcome back. Another day of key testimony in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. The witnesses taking the stand today included Cassie Ventura's mother, Regina, who testified about Cassie's bruises allegedly caused by Combs. Also before the jury today, a male escort known as the Punisher. He testified about his sexual encounters with both Cassie Ventura and Sean Combs. And last on the stand today, the special agent who was in charge of the 2024 raid on Combs' Miami Beach home. The jury seeing assault-style rifles found on a shelf inside Combs' bedroom. The serial numbers on those guns defaced. Let's dissect what happened in the courtroom today with our legal panel. Bernarda Villalona back with us. Also joining today, defense attorney and former assistant Manhattan District Attorney Jeremy Salan. Jeremy, you're going to take on the role of the defense. Bernarda, you're going to take on the role from the perspective of the prosecution. Let's start with you, Bernarda. You were in the courtroom. We talked about this earlier, Cassie's mother on the stand, and she talked about taking photos of bruises that she saw that were allegedly from Sean Combs to memorialize it. How effective was her testimony?
Well, her testimony was definitely compelling because it's coming from a mother's perspective. But also, those pictures that she took, that incident right there was the first time that Cassie had ever told her or insinuated that she was being assaulted by Sean Combs. So just imagine she is responding to her daughter and trying to do something to help her out of it. The jury was deadlocked on her testimony. They wanted to hear everything she had to say. And she came off so compelling that the defense got up and say, Ms. Ventura, I have no questions for you. There was no cross-examination. But she also mentioned a second incident that's important, that there was an incident where she was in front of the hotel. This was in California. Sean Combs had taken Cassie's phone and did not want to return it. So she called the cops to try to get it back. Eventually, she got the phone back, but Sean Combs then took the car. So again, going to that coercion part, that manipulating part of Cassie.
Who's your biggest advocate in life? Your mother's your biggest advocate, 100%. Who would lie for you? Who would steal for you? Who would cheat for you? Who will love you to the end of days? Your mother would.
Except her testimony's corroborated.
It's corroborated.
But why didn't the defense question her? What's the strategy there?
There's really no win. There's a difficulty going after a pregnant Cassie, even though we're not talking about 30-something-year-old Cassie. We're talking about 21-year-old Cassie. The same reason you don't go after mom. There's no win for you in that game. You're going to make her cry and make her that much more compelling and hurt her because objectively she's been hurt. Whether that means Sean Combs is an animal and a jerk and a bad man doing bad things, that's one thing. They acknowledge that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that he's committed these crimes and this whole racketeering pyramid that comes up to him. So it's really kid glove and delicate when you're dealing with a mother on the stand about her own daughter, who was a victim in some capacity, even if not the way the prosecution alleges.
Okay, so the other thing we have to talk about, the Punisher, the male escort. A lot of people are talking about it. He testified to his experience, saying that he saw Sean Combs never intoxicated, that Combs was giving directions. How does that all play in all of this?
So in terms of the prosecution, you question why call the Punisher, another escort, to come in and testify. Number one, there's strength in numbers when we're talking about the escorts and then talking about the freak-offs. But number two, also showing that, look, because remember doing opening statements, the defense wanted to portray that Sean Combs, a person that was acting he was intoxicated, he was on drugs, pretty much he wasn't understanding what he was doing. And here you have a male escort telling you, not a male escort, a performer, telling you that, look, I didn't see him intoxicated. I didn't see him under the influence of drugs. He was capable of the decisions that he was making. He was directing them as to what to do. And then again, you have another payoff for sexual acts.
Now I got to pull Bernarda back to the side of justice here for a second. She lost her way for a moment. My response to that would be, you had a man who came in who at one point may have said that he had feelings from her to the prosecution, and then when he was cross-examined on it, they may have been taken out of context. Well, which is it? That's pretty convenient. You admit what you can't deny, and deny what you can't admit, meaning he got caught with that, and now he has to have a story for it. But yes, Combs may have been sober and competent and okay to do whatever he was doing as a puppeteer, but at the same time, other than wincing and sighing a little bit in terms of Cassie's description, it wasn't as if he was being aggressive in the terms of really being violent or assertive. He likes that kink. That's his thing. I may not want it. None of us may want it. But again, does that build that criminal pyramid in terms of a conspiracy to commit racketeering? That's still a leap. There's a lot more to come.
Another interesting detail out of today was from the assistant that when he was supplying the hotel room for all the things that Combs wanted in there, he would pay for it, and then Bad Boy Records was who reimbursed him.
Yes. Yes. So in terms of the special stocking of what Sean Combs wanted in his room, so when we're talking about the baby oil, the Astroglide, those are items that supposedly Sean Combs did not want to be billed to Bad Boy. He wanted it to come out of his own personal account. But this is the thing. As a prosecutor, you argue that as consciousness of guilt. Like, why wouldn't you want it to come out if this is just normal out of your own business? You're taking it out of your own personal account because you know what you're doing is wrong and criminal.
I would argue that you would say the same thing if you actually wrote it off, because then you'd say there's some sort of tax fraud. So why are you writing all this stuff off that you should never be writing off? It's my personal shtick. That's what I like. It doesn't belong in my company, period.
Jeremy, Bernarda, thank you both for being here with us. And coming up, Obama and Diddy. Why that's one of the top searches online when it comes to this trial. Stay with us. Welcome back. It was a busy day in court. 4 witnesses called to the stand: Cassie Ventura's mother, Sean Combs' one-time personal assistant, a male exotic performer, and a special agent. Time now to take a look at what people are searching for online when it comes to this trial. Some of today's biggest search terms include Diddy Trial usher testimony, Sheree Hayes' book, Obama Diddy Trial, and the question of when will Diddy Trial end? ABC News contributor Kelly Carter joins us now from Los Angeles. She covers entertainment and pop culture for us. Okay, first up in the searches, Diddy Trial usher testimony. That's trending because he was mentioned today.
Yeah.
Why the interest?
Here's the truth. You know, Usher is a huge international superstar. He got that way because of Sean Combs's influence. He produced and really coached him in that debut album and really kind of taught him how to be a superstar. And so I think people want to search and see what that means. And of course, if there's going to be an Usher sighting at court at some point during the case of this trial.
People are also searching Obama Diddy Trial. This is trending because David James, the former assistant, recalled Combs taking ecstasy pills marked with the face of former President Obama.
I didn't know that was even a thing that you could do. But you know what? People are also trying to see, did former President Obama ever go to like a Sean Combs party? Of course, there is literally zero evidence that shows that that even happened. But it's just one of those bizarre things that people are searching, trying to find something.
Yeah. We have one more search to talk about here. People are looking at when will Diddy Trial end?
Yeah, you know what? We all are armchair lawyers right now and trying to figure this out. The truth of the matter is that people are learning in real time how the justice system works. And I think everyone was trying to draw their conclusions essentially after 2 days of testimony. But as we have seen, we've seen so many witnesses testify, and then we're being told how many others have yet to come to the stand. We're in this for the long haul. This is going to take over the better part of the summer for a lot of people who are interested in this trial. And I think people are really starting to have a firm understanding of that now, seeing how the progression of this trial is going.
Yeah, it's not going to be quick. Kelly Carter, thank you so much for being with us. And thank you for joining us. We'll be back with new episodes every day of the trial. The show streams right here on ABC News Live, Disney Plus, and Hulu weekdays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern and Pacific. For even more on the Diddy trial, make sure to follow our podcast, Bad Rap, The Case Against Diddy, hosted by our very own Brian Buckmeyer on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. I'm Eva Pilgrim in New York. Have a good rest of your day.